Greetings, everybody. This is Brother Scott on this Sunday morning, March the 29th. I guess a week or two into quarantine. um, and I hope that this message finds you doing well. I think today's lesson is going to be helpful. Having to live in this reality, this new way of life that fortunately I think we can all know with some confidence that this is not permanent. Thank God for that, but the duration is something we're not sure about. So today's lesson will be timely as far as that goes. But before we get to the lesson today, I want to share with you some prayer requests, and we do have several. Some of them you're probably already aware of, and some of them you're not. First of all, let's remember to pray for Mark, Bob, and Sarah, who, there's some fractured relationships there that need to be mended. Let's also continue to pray for Jed. Cheryl requested prayer for Jed. Also, let's pray that Sister Carrie's house in Caribou sells, that a buyer comes along and takes that burden off of her and provides a blessing in place of the burden. Let's continue to pray for Sister Paula. We know that she's got those conditions in her body right now. She really needs to have a procedure done, but because of the medical community's response to COVID-19, they have put that surgery off, and she really needs it. Let's just pray that she doesn't develop any further problems and that those things don't worsen. And pray for hers and Donnie's finances. I know that this crisis is hitting our economy and hitting local businesses as well as the national economy. And the last I knew, their hours were cut back severely at work because people can't come and dine in. There's only the drive-through that's available at some of these restaurants and or delivery services for some of them. So let's pray that they're okay, and pray for Shauna and Leroy and their family. Pray for Jess and her kids. Keep them all safe. Sister Teresa needs a financial miracle, really. Her hot water heater is in very bad condition. I was at their place a few days ago, and the amount of the leakage coming out of that hot water heater, and the color of it, obviously it's rusty and stuff. The water that's coming out is rusty. And that tells you that really that hot water heater could go any day. And they're not cheap to fix. And so she needs a blessing. Sister Elaine also needs our prayers and support. She's also in need of a financial miracle. Evidently, some severe ice dams have developed around the edges of her roof, and it's causing some water to back up and leakage to come in the house in places, which is causing water damage. So some severe needs in both of their homes there, and both of those things will cost some money to take care of. Okay, beyond our local congregation, obviously there's some big things we want to be praying about. Let's pray for, in this whole crisis situation, that our family, friends, and neighbors are protected, that they don't get ill and sick. Let's pray for our whole nation and the world in light of the illness itself, as well as the impact of the illness on society and the economy and how it's affecting people. We want to say special prayers for the Pentecostal church in Wheaton, Illinois. It looks like pretty much that whole congregation is infected with COVID-19. And as a part of that event, Evangelist Eli Hernandez was ministering there in a series of services, and he contracted COVID-19. I don't know if you know or remember Brother Hernandez. He and his wife have been a dynamic team within the United Pentecostal Church organization for a long time. She's known for her musicianship. She's really a wonderful saxophonist, and she's really been had a positive impact that way. And of course, he's a dynamic speaker, and so they've been a pretty dynamic team for for years, for a long time, really well known across the organization, and he is in very bad shape. The virus has hit him, and as of the last report, he's in ICU, and and uh, and so, like I said, this is a dangerous illness, and we want to pray for Brother Hernandez that he recovers, and doesn't suffer any long-term effects once he has, beaten the illness. Because if he's in ICU and his lungs are having that kind of problem, there's always the danger that there's some permanent damage being done, even if he doesn't die, and which is a very real possibility too. So we need to be praying for the Hernandezes and that church in Wheaton, Illinois. And that brings me to the last prayer request, and this is troublesome in a different way. We want to pray about one of our very large churches in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They have made the decision to ignore, for the most part. I mean, they're saying they're trying to keep social distancing intact, while still having services where, 1,000 people, up to 1,000 people, sometimes come to that church, and or a little over, I think. And they made decisions to ignore the warnings, and there was a news story done on this, because they are ignoring their social pressure all around them to start trying to fall in line with all the social distancing and not congregating, which they're refusing to do. And on the pictures of their services, there didn't look like there was much social distancing being observed. I mean, there are people, obviously traditional Pentecostal style altar calls are going on, people praying and laying on hands and hugging and sitting shoulder to shoulder, standing and worshiping shoulder. So social distancing isn't happening really. And in addition to the danger from the illness that they are basically putting themselves in, they're putting everyone that those people are connected to and will be around in the community in danger. And then there's also the reputation that at local churches is suffering, and causing damage to their own reputation, and it also is a reputation it affects all other Pentecostal churches too. As this thing blows up nationally and people are seeing these images, so it's not a good thing. So we want to pray about that. So if you'll take some time today, say some prayers for these prayer requests. I appreciate everyone banding together and working to try to bring the attention of heaven onto these things. So today we're going to have a lesson that's going to be, I think, very timely. And I'm taking my text today from Acts 27, verse 7. And I apologize. I am having to kind of get used to this whole venue a little bit. And I'm not positive that I've found the ideal formula. So I'm look up to the screen to make sure I'm interacting, and you can tell that I'm talking to you, but I'm also having to look down at my notes, so I'm sure that's making the shining spot on top of my head really stand out, and hopefully you're not being blinded too much. But anyway, bear with me as we do this. But if you'll turn in your Bibles to Acts 27, verse 7, I will read our scripture text. I'll give you a moment to turn there. While you're turning there, I don't know what you can see around me here. I'm broadcasting from the back room of the parsonage. This was the room that Jordan had inhabited, and I realized he had a lot more space here. I had to set up, a place where I could do broadcasts like this one, because I'm going to be teaching students live in a week, or a little over a week and a day. And I needed a good space, a nice, attractive space to do that from. And of course, that Sister Shaw and Cheryl really did quite a number on this room. And I don't know that with just the red wall, I think it looks nice. It's a great place. And there's just more space. So, yeah. I put up a little Norman Rockwell on the wall. Um, Maybe that's not conducive too much to spiritual things, but I think my head blocks that mostly anyway. But yeah, Norman Rockwell's a great artist, and he put some levity into situations, and I thought it went well on the wall back there. Anyway, so hopefully the view that you're seeing here, around me is something you find pleasing to the eye. All right, Acts 27, verse 7 says, "And when we had sailed slowly many days, and scarce were come over against Cnidus, the wind not suffering us, we sailed under Crete over against Salmon." Today's title, the lesson is Surviving the Good Ship Quarantine. Surviving the Good Ship Quarantine. Lord, we love you this morning. We ask you right now to bless the word, to quicken it to our hearts so that we can hear it, accept it, and be made better by it. Find encouragement in it this morning, Lord, for this very odd, trying, and even scary time. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, one of the features of this whole event that we've been living through in the news have been stories of cruise ships, people being stuck on them, quarantined, not being allowed to get off of them. And I thought in preparing this lesson, I said, man, what an appropriate metaphor for how we kind of all feel a little bit. Obviously, we're not as secluded as that, but we are having to be secluded somewhat and kind of at sail, alone or with a small group of people, um, with only limited connection to the outside world. So I thought it was an appropriate metaphor for us, and therefore it sets up some things we can talk about to help us in this time. Um, because what happens whenever people are cooped up with the same few people for a long period of time without able to get away from each other too much is we can start getting a little bit stir crazy, get a little cabin fever, get a little bit short and agitated, irritable with each other. Uh, yeah, and that's natural. That's natural. It was a problem historically, in ancient seafaring voyages. For example, when people would sail from one continent to the other, from the old world to the new world, go around the Horn of Africa or wherever, these long voyages, is tempers would flare and people would start feeling claustrophobic, and and so there's a good possibility that some of us, some of you, and people here in my own house, that maybe we are starting to feel some of that a little bit of feeling like, oh, if I have to listen to their voice one more minute, um, oh, I just got to get out. I got to go somewhere. That's common. Proverbs 25:24. There are several verses that Solomon wrote like this and included in Proverbs. And in fact, there's another one that's basically the exact same wording. It's the same verse. He writes it again later. And then there's other versions too. But this particular one says, "It is better to live in a corner of the roof than in a house shared with a contentious woman." Now, ladies, before you get defensive, you know my feelings on Solomon and his many wives. I have a feeling that Solomon wrote that and targeted women because he made the unwise choice to share his roof with hundreds, hundreds. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of them were writing in their diaries a very similar verse. I wouldn't be surprised if they were writing, "It is better to live in the corner of the roof than in the house with a contentious man." Uh, because they were also cooped up with all those people, including him, who was getting irritable and short tempered with all of them because they're getting irritable and short tempered because they're all cooped up together. Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if you find yourself there of late. Um, and I want to help you today with ways of turning this time into instead of a trial into something possibly productive, restorative, and beneficial and even exciting maybe in some ways. But before I get to some of those strategies, um, let's talk about some of the threats of what can make this time harder than it has to be. First of all, and you know I'm going to go there because I go there quite often, but man, is there if there ever was a time to underscore this problem, it's now. One of the things that can make this time harder to bear is focusing on all the coverage of this crisis. Nothing makes you more miserable than having people go down the list of all the things that should make you unhappy and miserable. And that's what the news media, well, we know they're good at it. For whatever reason, us humans, when we think of news, we think of the bad stuff that mostly that happens. And right now, there's plenty of bad to go around. So having the news going 24/7, well, not 24, but hours and hours throughout the day, are you really happier when you do that? I mean, you've got to be cooped up with people. You're having to deal with this stuff anyway. Are you really making this whole situation more positive and better by having those voices pipe it into your house continually? So I don't think there's anything wrong with watching the news, but don't do it continually. Check in once or twice a day and then move away. Do other stuff. Do things that make you happy. Do things that make other people smile, and that'll make you smile, right? So don't fill your day up with every breaking little nuance and detail of this state's quarantining that, and this organization is having trouble responding. This people aren't quite getting respirator masks built fast enough, and this many have died in this state in this country. Ah, yes, it's happening, but let's make sure some other good stuff is happening in our immediate surroundings too. Focus on that, keep track of that, but then move away from it, do other things. The limited social interaction, obviously, is another way that another thing that makes this hard. We're going to talk about how to manage that social interaction a little bit because you're probably having social interaction, but only with the same few people, right? And we're going to talk about how to manage that. But that's one of the things that that's a threat. The worry about your own family and your own self, and that can be you worry about whether or not they're sick or ill, especially family members that are somewhere else. Or I don't think we have anyone in our households right now that are ill or sick, but that could be a problem in the future. Worries about your finances and their finances, because as we've already mentioned in the prayer requests, this is hitting our economy and affecting some of us very directly as far as our employment goes. So those things weigh on it and make this harder. The sense of inaction, lack of activity, only be able to do a few things, and that can drive you crazy. If you're like me, you got to be doing. You got to be doing. If you're not doing, you start getting restless and feeling like you're not accomplishing something, feeling insignificant, and that's another threat, right? Is this feeling of, oh God, I don't matter. Who am I mattering to? How am I making a difference? So that inactivity, and we're going to talk about that today as well. There are ways to counter a lot of these negative effects. Um, and even replace them with some positive actions and things. And I think you're going to find that the word action, is a very important term today. Action, because action feels like we're being robbed of action, and we have been robbed of our typical activities, but that doesn't mean we're robbed of the ability to do others, right? So um, the first area that I want to talk about that would help you cope with this is managing your interactions with others that you're stuck on this ship with. Manage your interactions. Carefully consider how you're interacting with each other, and try to proactively design your interactions and modify them in an intelligent and constructive way. Uh, if you just all cooped up in the house together and you're just all sitting on the couch looking at each other, or you're just all sitting on the couch shoulder to shoulder watching TV, and obviously that only really stimulates the mind for so long, right? Before long, you're not really watching TV anymore. Maybe you're on the phone texting, maybe you're getting snippy with the person beside you. Well, what's going on there is you're just allowing the interaction just happen haphazardly, however it's going to happen, whatever's going to do, whatever their mood they're going to have and you're going to have develop is just going to do it. And you're not thinking about how you actually can create moments and create moods and help yourself in those relationships not ever get to those places of frustration and outburst. You don't have to get there if you proactively take steps beforehand. Um, Set up constructive, positive activities. This can be fun activities. Plan to play some card games and board games. Those are great options. If you happen to have some sort of gaming system in the house that has a setup where multiple people can play, hey, that could also work. Do things, set up things that everybody's going to do together. And by the way, guys, this is all hands on deck. You're right. I'm going to drive that ship metaphor into the ground today. You drive the ship aground. Oh, there it is. Anyway, this, leave me out of it. Don't, man, that's not usually constructive anytime. To be in the house and act like you're not a member of the social group, because it creates this whole negative dynamic of how do people interact. They don't know how to behave around you. That makes them feel awkward, and then they act bad toward you and act weird. And you get snippy. Yeah, you got to let go of that. That it's just me and nobody else. That's not true. You have an impact on those around you, even if you don't think you are. Even if you try to wall yourself off, you are. Your presence is felt, and when it's a presence that says I'm not interested in being with you, well, you're sending a bad message, and that's kind of insulting and demeaning to those around you. You're saying, you're there, but I don't really want to have to deal with you. You're not someone I like that much. This is a bad time to send that message. It's a bad time anytime, but it's a really bad time to send that message now. You live with other people. You do. We all do. Hopefully. If you don't, well, those of you who don't live with other people, I know like Elaine, Teresa, and Rochelle live close to each other, but they realize how lonely it can get and how much they actually need people. It's those of us who live with other people who have the luxury of thinking we don't need other people. Yeah. When we don't live with other people, we realize, holy cow, I'm lonely. I need people. And that's why Rochelle and Elaine and Teresa have formed such great friendships there. And they do tend to each other and interact. Oh, by the way, guys, I have to apologize for this. Sister Rochelle has a prayer request too. She just had some negative tests come back from the doctor from tests that were run, and there's going to be biopsies. We need to be praying for Rochelle. This is a scary time for her. So don't forget to pray for Rochelle. And I apologize, Sister Rochelle, for not mentioning that at the top of this broadcast. But anyway, plan some fun activities. Set up some times to do things together. Games are just one way to do that. You could go on a walk together when it's nice out, and it will be nice out today for the first half to 3/4 of the day. Tonight we're supposed to have some precipitation, but you've got great opportunities. The snow is melting. The roads are clear and clean. I don't think the trails in the woods are something you can try yet, but the roads are clean and clear, and birds and animals are starting to move around. So it's a great time to get out. The black flies aren't out yet. I did see a centipede wiggling across the fresh fallen snow to a couple of days ago, which is interesting to me, right? But there's stuff to see out there. Do things together. Plan productive projects. So you can plan fun activities together. You can also plan productive projects together. Say, hey, would you be interested in helping me reorganize this storage room. You probably all have a storage room or a storage closet or a utility room that it could probably use some TLC. And you've been meaning to get around to it for like 3 or 4 years, maybe, right? This is a great time to do that. That's something you can do together. Hey, let's go through this stuff. We have all these boxes of stuff that we haven't gone through in years. We might find some cool stuff there together. Plan those activities, plan productive, constructive, positive activities together. And that leaves less room for the natural things that happen when time is too open and time is too unstructured and you're having to look at each other over and over again or hear each other's voice more than you want to. Yeah. See, that kind of stuff doesn't happen when you get productive and positive. Plan things so that those other things don't happen. Build times into your schedule each day and build times into your schedule in the week for doing things together. Build times in the schedule for getting work done. By the way, once again, all hands on deck, right? We're all in the ship together. Hopefully, I don't have to say this to anyone. Hopefully everyone that's listening to the broadcast knows that, hey, I'm a member of this household. I'm stuck here. I'm going to have to be contributing. I'm going to be helping. By the way, this past week, I've washed a lot of dishes, and I don't regret it, and I don't begrudge it at all. It's a productive thing to do. I feel good when the job is done. I've done a whole lot of other things too. I'm going to tell you more about that in a minute. I mean, like this room is one thing. I've really converted this room, done a lot of work in here. But yeah, build time in for work. Build time in, and this is important. I've been talking about building constructive time together. Put in some space in the schedule for also having some time alone. There is nothing wrong with having some time alone. I know it sounds like I said the opposite a while ago, but I was talking about people who that's all they want. That's a problem too. You want to structure in time for together. You also want to structure in time for being alone. And everyone needs to be aware of when that time. Don't just think that they're going to get it. That when you shut the door, they ought to know to leave you alone. No, that is passive aggressive, and that is unfair, and it's just rude. Say things, set things up so that people know that, everyone knows, hey, this is going to be our time. This is going to be my time to read a book. This is going to be my time to do some research. This is going to be my time to just surf the web and watch YouTube videos, whatever you'd like to do in your alone time. But build that in and allow those times to be known. And so it doesn't create some situation where they don't know they come in and all of a sudden they're mad and upset and scared. Yeah, don't allow that to happen. Be proactive. A key to surviving long voyages with a limited amount of space and time, to surviving on your cruise liner that's anchored off the coast and nobody can get off. A key to surviving long voyages on a ship is everyone knows the time and the schedule of the ship. They know when things are going to happen, when things aren't going to happen. They know when they have open time to themselves. They know when they have time with activities. They know when dinner's going to be served. They know when it's time to get up and swab the deck matey. They have a clear routine. Build a routine so everyone knows where they stand when they stand there. And that will avoid a lot of conflict and allow everyone to work together to become a cohesive unit, and know when to expect to be alone and when to expect to be sharing space and time with other people. Designate some spaces. Maybe good to say, hey, this is, I'm going to have this space back here for doing this sort of thing, just so you know. And everybody needs some space like that. I know I do. I've got to have. I mean, that's a part of what I did here in this room. I got to have space to be able to do this. I got to have space to be able to do the things that I do alone. I need some space just to unwind and not have noise, from televisions and just random stuff. Right? We all need our space sometimes, and that's okay. But you shouldn't just plop down in the living room and expect everyone else just to tiptoe around you and somehow that becomes your space when it's supposed to be a public space. That's unfair. Don't do that. Take advantage of the technologies that allow you to connect to people outside your house. Now, look what I'm doing. Hey, I learned how to do that this week. By the way, learning how to do new things, that's going to be something to talk about in a minute. This this is really easy to use now. These technologies have come a long ways in the last few years. I know 2 years ago, I tried to use this same technology. I don't know if they had the record feature on there yet, but this is a software that allows you to meet with multiple people. For instance, we could have created a conference where all of you were in here, we're all having a big conversation. I tried to use this 2 years ago for a different scenario, a different situation at school on my Mac, my Mac laptop, which is an Apple product, and I couldn't get it to work. They said you had to download Chrome. I tried downloading Chrome. I still couldn't get it to work on my Mac. It was more proprietary. It was more glitchy. Here I am 2 years later. I'm doing this on a PC today, but I've already done a few of these tests just as trial runs on my Mac too. So this software is getting really, really easy to use, folks. Take advantage of it. There's all kinds of great opportunities where you can reach out to people and talk to people that you're not actually on the ship with and get some social interaction that way. I did this yesterday, a live conference with my mom. I had to walk her through how to get it set up. It was not as hard as she thought it was going to be. And within minutes, she was up and running, and I love this. I can see your face. So take advantage of your technologies now. You don't have to feel like the only person in the world are those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that you're stuck on the ship with. And another thing to do, and I briefly mentioned this, but take advantage of the outdoors. We're going to get some snow tonight. In fact, up to 4 to 6 inches. But knowing what time of year it is and seeing what the temperatures are going to be, it's not going to be here long. By the end of tomorrow, it's already going to be melting, and by Tuesday, most of it's going to be gone, right? So once again, take advantage of the outdoors. The roads are definitely opening up. There are days when the sun is shining. It's still a little bit cool, so put on an extra layer. But if you take a nice brisk walk, man, that sunlight, the sun. I'm so enjoying the sunlight right now. That's what I miss in the wintertime more than anything else. Take advantage of the great outdoors. Psalm 19:1 says, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands." You get some positive energy by interacting with the great outdoors. It's a proven fact. It's a proven medical fact. You get some positive hormones and endorphins flowing whenever you get in the great outdoors. So take advantage of God's beauty. You won't regret it. Number 7 on my list, that doesn't mean anything to you, but do productive things. Now, I talked about doing productive things together, but let me talk about the advantages of just being productive in general. As I mentioned, I have to be doing for me to be happy. I found that out. I figured that out by myself. I didn't know that for a long time in my younger years. I thought I could be happy if I just had a job and money and was meeting my responsibilities, and then on my free time I just played video games or watched TV or did stuff like that. Very passive things where I'm not really doing anything. I'm just, yeah. And I realized over time, wow, am I really happy? I'm pretty grumpy, dissatisfied. I'm always trying to find that next fix. I'm always trying to find something better to watch. No, do productive things. It's you will be a totally different, happier, more confident person if you're doing things and accomplishing things. Here are some things you can do, possibilities that you can do even while you're stuck on this ship. Improvements and maintenance to the ship. And stepping outside the ship metaphor to your property, maybe, right? So in the house, around the house, in the yard. The snow's going away, the ground is starting to show, and unless it's just a big, patch of mud like the front of my yard is right now, you might can start doing some things out of the property. You can definitely start doing things to the house and in the garage. Start doing improvements and maintenance to the property. I know that Sister Teresa is really proud of herself. She gets busy. She finds a lot of satisfaction in doing these home improvement projects in her house and reorganizing stuff. My mom loves reorganizing. Every time I go over there, I think the blender's in a different spot, and so is the recliner and the couch. But she's always trying to streamline, and she gets a lot of satisfaction out of that. Otherwise, she wouldn't keep doing it, right? yeah, so you can make improvements and maintenance to the property, and you'll feel like you've gotten something done, and you will have gotten something done. You'll be able to look at that and say, "Hey, I like this. Now the space feels more comfortable to me. It's open." And yeah. Something else that will give you another productive thing to do that will give you a lot of satisfaction is learning and developing a new skill. Try something new. Try to master some other kind of thing that you've never done before. Maybe a new skill in the kitchen if you really like to cook. Maybe learn a new technique for cleaning up stains on walls. Master some new technique or skill. Learn something new. Learn how to do something. Something that takes practice, and that will eat up, first of all, that unproductive time, and get rid of more of that, so you don't wind up in those de facto default moments of tension with your loved ones. So it'll take more of that, and you'll come out of this. When you get off the ship, you'll be able to get off the ship saying, "Hey, guess what I can do now? Watch me work." Right. So learn and develop a new skill. Great satisfaction comes out of that. I have learned a few new techniques and skills on how to do things with wood. I need to send you guys a picture, those of you who hadn't seen it. But I made a musical instrument, and it actually plays music. It's really pretty. I'm kind of proud of it. It's a stringed instrument. It's called a dulcimer. Would remind you of a guitar, but it really turned out pretty well. I learned some things about how to work with wood and the right tools to use. And now I have skills, and I'm kind of really jazzed about it and excited about these skills. And now I'm like, oh, I got these skills. Now I want to build something else, right? Yeah, do something productive. Um, Something else you can do productive: organization of and preparation for your job slash career. It could be that maybe you're at home a lot more and not able to go to work as much. Maybe you're not able to go work at all. Um, my job, I'm not able to go to work, but we're still preparing to do work. We're going to be teaching online here. Um, well, there's all kinds of things that I could do, and I am doing to prepare for that. There's things I can do that are things I've been meaning to get around to anyway. What about all that filing that you've been putting off? Hmm. What about what about that inventory you've been needing to take? um, what about that? What about those partners and associates and vendors or other people that you really have been meaning to correspond? What about all those emails that you haven't responded to? So there's all kinds of projects, and usually in the day-to-day rat race of things, those are things which you have a gap to do. You've got a gap. Use the gap, and you'll feel good when it's done. And those things create opportunities too, right? You start corresponding. First of all, you start going through. Say you do an inventory. You're doing an inventory of all the goods and things that were related to your job, and you've been meaning to do it. And then doing the inventory, you remember, you discover these particular items you forgot that you had. And all of a sudden, oh, I was going to do that project, and now you've got something else you can do and look forward to doing. Going through your emails. You discover an email, you're finally responding to it, you discover an email from someone who was reaching out to you with a neat idea for a project to do, a way to partner. And yeah, you find opportunities when you start doing those tasks and going back through those backlog of things. So you can get that backlog taken care of now. Do it. Um, do things to prepare for upcoming opportunities that you can't take advantage of on the ship, but you know they're coming. For example, right now, as I mentioned, the snow's all melting. It's going away. Very soon, you're going to be able to get out and work in that lawn. Go check your tools in the garage. See if the tools and things you want to do. Maybe you've got a lawn project or a new gardening project. Do a little checking on your tools. See if your trimmers are sharpened. If the motor is the oil's been changed. See if you've got the supplies. You've got the fertilizer you need. Start developing and preparing for when you can finally get out and work in that yard or work in that garden. That way you can get work on those machines, work in the yard. Summer's coming. Start making preparations and plans for the things you want to do this summer. Make sure you got, if you're going snorkeling, make sure your fins and your snorkel and your mask are all where you want them to be. If you plan to start some sort of creative project around the house, make sure you've got all your plans. Just get everything in place so that when those opportunities come, bam, you're up and running. And that'll generate excitement, and that'll generate opportunities and connections that you didn't realize. So prepare for the opportunities that you know are coming, so that when they do hit, because this isn't going to last forever, folks. It's just not. So prepare for those opportunities, so when they come, you're up and running and having a ball. Okay. And you'll find that in preparing for the project, there's some excitement that builds, and you're going to be better at doing whatever it is, at taking advantage of the opportunity when it happens, when you spend all this time thinking and preparing. That's me. Um, I I needed a rack for my ties, uh, and I realized I've been draping them over a hanger in the closet forever, and it just doesn't work. They're overlapping each other, so you can't see what you've got. You try to pull one off, and more come off than you want. So I was like, I'm tired of this. I've got this new space that's opening up for me here. So I was like, how can I build a tie? I had all these different ideas, and I didn't immediately go out and buy materials to build this little tie rack, which is great, because the more I let it stew, the more I let it sit there and think about how to do it, and started measuring and looking at space, slowly but surely, a real simple thing occurred to me, and it only took me minutes once I had the materials to throw the thing together, because I did spend all that time preparation and planning, and when it was over, I had a much easier and a more effective system than the one I would have made if I had just waited to the moment and just tried to do it without all that time preparing and planning. So spend some time preparing for the opportunities that will be coming. Um, okay. Ecclesiastes 3:12 through 13 says, I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. So be productive, do things, take advantage of opportunities, prepare for coming opportunities, be productive. It's God's gift to you, because according to the writer of Ecclesiastes, you're happy when you're doing, you're happy when you're productive. That's God's gift to you. All right. Um, Another way to help this time not be so laborious and unmanageable is to stimulate your brain. Yeah, challenge your brain. Read a book. Read a book. It doesn't have to be a heavy, hard book. You read a book you enjoy, or read a challenging, hard book. I have this book on my shelf. I bet you I haven't read maybe 30 pages of that whole book. It's huge. It's probably has the most of any book I've got on my shelf besides the dictionary. I have to read that book a page at a time. It takes me a good hour after I read that page to figure out what in the world that page said. It's called I won't bore you with the name. Trust me, it sounds like the kind of book that would, you know, drain your brain. It's just, very wordy, very academic. Um, but man, when I read a page and I decipher what it means, it changes the world. It opens my eyes. I was like, that's the reason it takes so long to decipher it, is because they're talking about things way up here and I'm way down here. But man, when I'm able to work and climb up and make sense of it, and I challenge my brain and I see what it is they're saying, and that light comes on, you talk about feeling awesome and good and enlightening the whole world. I mean, it's a cool experience. Learning something releases endorphins. It's good for you to learn. It's not just good for you because you know more. It's good for you because it makes you feel good when you learn it. It's work when you're learning it, but when you learn it, you feel like, oh, I got this. Look what I know now. So read a book. Become an expert on a new thing. Become an expert on a new thing. Anybody can be an expert on their own wardrobe, on their own dresser drawer, on their own collection of games or whatever, but become an expert on a brand new thing. Become an expert on some new culture that you've never really read much about. Become an expert on some interesting animals or plants. Do a little study in animals and plants. Learn about the monitor, all the different species of monitor lizards and where they live and how they differ. Uh, Become an expert on some historical event. There's a lot of cool historical stuff just right around Presque Isle and the Aroostook County that you can do a lot of research on right online. Uh, but also, there's history all around the world and around the nation. Become an expert on some historical event. Read and study about it, and you're going to find the more you do, the more passionate and excited you get about it. Learn a particular new skill. I think I mentioned that already. Develop a brand new skill you've never learned how to use. Maybe you know how to knit really well, but you don't know how to crochet. Right? Or maybe you want to go real different. Maybe you've really worked with textile skills and creating that way, but you've never dabbled with painting at all. Learn a new skill. Um, Learning something, as I mentioned, it is work. But I say that's a good thing. It's a good thing generally to be working, but man, it's really beneficial right now because you got time to fill. Work takes time, and you find yourself needing to use time in a healthy fashion. Not just waste it, not feel like use your time. Where did the day go? Oh, I spent all day catching up on that sitcom. Oh boy, that does I hate days like that. When I look back, what did I do? No. So you need to take up time anyway. Learning takes time. Work takes time. Learning takes work. Second of all, work produces stamina and it produces confidence. And when you build stamina and confidence, guess what? You're set up to do. Now you're set up to do even bigger things when you next put your mind and your body to it. And third of all, work, once you've completed it, that sense of achievement releases positive hormones, endorphins. So learning something new, that releases endorphins. An achievement, working in an achievement releases endorphins. So that you got this double punch of, ooh, I really feel good now. Learning something new releases positive hormones, and so does achieving things. So it's like a double punch. Now, um, the last area of I want to talk about that would help you feel good and manage this time and make this time of being isolated on the good ship quarantine, make it feel like a positive experience, is being creative. Now, I know what some of you are saying, and I'm going to address this concern. Anytime I talk about being creative, there's always one, two, three people in the group who are saying, "Well, that's just not me. I'm not creative." And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But before I do, let's talk about first of all. I want to briefly mention that while learning something new has the double effect of double powerful positive endorphin punch of first of all learning itself releases endorphins and then achieving something releases. So there's that double punch. Well, being creative actually quadruples. Make sure you can see my four fingers. Quadruples the endorphin punch. It really releases positive energy. And I'm going to talk about how it does that in a minute. But let's talk about some ways to be creative and things that are creative. And some of these are going to be things that you didn't think of as being creative things. In fact, if you're one of those people who say, well, I'm not creative, I'm going to list things here. Some of them you're already doing while claiming you're not creative. Uh, be creative. Cook something and throw a new twist in it. Not have anything big. Cook something new. Build something new. Some of you already know how to build things or make things. Well, build and make something you hadn't made and build before. Write something new. Now, this is one of those areas that people think, well, creative people are writers. They think me. I write poetry, so I'm a creator. I'm creative. I don't write poetry. I'm not creative. But you cook and you build. Right. Drawing or painting, that's something you think of as a creative field, but try your hand at it. Who says you have to be good at something? Sometimes, I'm telling you, some of the joy from creating, I think more of the joy of the creative process comes from the process rather than actually pulling it off. Even whenever the creation doesn't come together, I learned something from that, and there's a joy in the doing, and that doesn't mean it has to be good. In fact, most artists, they flop a lot more than they do good, more than they pull it off. There's a lot of failure that goes into it, but it's not considered failure. See, that's the thing. You got to trick. You got shackles on your brain. You got to take those off. And just because a project doesn't turn like you wanted it to, and maybe even the end result is not something that anyone's going to want to use or be interested in looking at or taking advantage of, the process itself was learning. Remember, learning releases endorphins. Yeah. So drawing, painting, learn to play a new song if you're a musician, learn to sing a new song, learn the lyrics to a song if you just, even if you don't consider yourself a singer. Um, Compose something new if you like to arrange and create music like I do. Uh, Record. A lot of you have smartphones now. My old ugly duct tape smartphone here. You got smartphones, you got computers, you got other devices that record. Have fun with that. There are times, used to, now I'm a really silly person at times, and there are times when I'm looking in the mirror in the bathroom brushing my teeth, and my brain never stops, right? And I'll start talking in some crazy accent, some character in my head, and just being silly, but I'm being creative. And being creative is playing, right? It's how kids play. That's the reason I know all of you said I'm not creative. Baloney. You were born a child and children play. That's what being creative is. Creative is a form of play. And it's also problem solving, which I was going to get to later. That's all it is. It's being willing to play with things and see how they work. That's it. And so in the mirror, I'm playing with my voice, being silly and making different accents. Sometimes I'll go and I'll record those crazy things on my iPhone. I don't think I let anybody else hear them ever. Um, but I'm having fun and I'm creating. Yeah, do something, record something new, record a video diary. It doesn't have to be silly or funny. You can just record your thoughts, create a video or a audio. It doesn't have to be video. You could just record your voice um, of your thoughts on things. In a daily diary, musings on life, musings on what does family mean, and where does joy come from? Well, these are all questions I hope you're grappling with anyway. If you want to make sure you're getting those things right. Um, you can do a reading of some interesting piece of something that you've read. It could be a book or a poem or interesting lines from a song or a funny message you heard somewhere. Read pieces of that and record why you thought it was funny or interesting, right? I mean, there's all kinds of ways. You could act out a scene or a drama. I mean, you could you could sew or knit, make something, get glue and paper and scissors and make some craft, right? Um, Design a new project for the lawn or for the house. Design a new game or a puzzle. Just have fun making something new. That's all. Now, let me tell you how that quadruples the endorphin punch. It adds to that learning something new that I talked about a while ago, where that has two powerful endorphin punches. That the learning process and then the achievement at the end. That's two different punches of positive energy that by learning something you fit. Well, let me show you how creating quadruples that. First of all, there's the learning process. When you're creating, you're automatically doing something you've never done before because you're making, even if, for instance, if I may be writing a song, which I've written hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs because I started when I was a teenager. And trust me, a lot of them were bad. A lot of them, some of them are still they're just no good. And I'm so glad that I let them die and no one hears them. But even those that don't turn out well, I'm learning something about how the words and the music fit together, right? I'm learning in that process. And that's true. Cook something new in the kitchen, you learn about a different way a seasoning fits in the potpourri of other seasonings, or a different process of how long to beat eggs a particular way and fold them in. So you're learning because you're doing something you've never done before. So there's that endorphin release of the learning. And then whenever it does come together, there's that endorphin punch of the achievement. So you've got those two again. But now let me talk about the additional two that being creative brings to those. Um, Whenever you're in the process of creating something new, it's a process not only of just learning how to do something a slightly different way, but occasionally, and sometimes not so occasionally, sometimes fairly often, during the process of making that new thing, doing that, learning that new skill puts you in a place that I like to call discovery. I mean, it's like learning, except it's more of a eureka moment that you don't see coming. You don't know what's going to happen. You just know you're climbing, you're working, you're seeing the mountainside in a different way, and all of a sudden, bam! You come up over the peak, and there's the sun setting all around you on the hills, and and you have to stop and take it in. Being creative puts you in moments like that every once in a while. And man, when that happens, it's like the regular earning, but then it's been amped up and multiplied by 10. It's the only way I can describe it. It's you see things occasionally when you're learning something new. All of a sudden, you're put in a brand new position to see something in the whole world in a different way you never saw it before, and it just feels amazing. It makes you feel good and powerful and excited. Yeah, be creative. So being creative, you're getting the endorphin rush of learning new things. You're getting the endorphin rush of achieving when you finish something and it comes off well, and you're getting those big boosts of moments of discovery. And then finally, the last way that being creative gives you a positive endorphin rush and makes you feel good about yourself and about things is the moment when it comes off and then you share it. And when someone sitting at the table takes a bite of that that dessert that you had never made before, and their eyes go and they go, oh, and they do that. Oh, you're like, yep, did it, did it. Um, whenever you whenever you have knitted or sewn um, a new type of mitten or glove, and you give that to somebody and they put it on and they thank you for it and they talk about how warm those are. That's a little for us. It's the moment you share it. And when the audience or when your family or your friends, when they show that appreciation, when they have to take a second bite, when they have to stop and take a second look, when their mouths fall open, or when they smile, oh man, talk about a payoff. So that's 4 ways that being creative will make you a happier person. Now, back to those of you who said when I talked about being creative, you said, well, but the problem is I'm not a creative person. Well, I hope you've already kind of caught wind of the fact that I don't agree with you. I know you're thinking, how can you say that? I know me better than you do. Yeah, but if you're a person who's bought into that, that tells me that you don't know anything about what you think creativity is. So I'm the expert on that. Between the two of us, I'm not saying I'm a great artist, but I know creativity. And what you're talking about is not creativity. I'm not I'm not saying the things you're thinking of are creative things. But when I say you're creative, I'm not talking about what you're talking about when you say you're not. We're talking about two different things. When people say I'm not creative, they usually have in their minds this high echelon of things like poetry and music and art and and performance, uh, uh, All these things that we think of as artistic. And yet, when I'm being creative, even when I'm doing those things that occupy this high echelon of, oh, those are creative things, those are poetry, those music. Even when I'm doing those things, what I am doing, the process that's going on in my head that leads to that, it's the same exact process that I used to build a set of bookshelves. Uh-huh. That's not considered art at all, is it? It's the same exact process that I use in the kitchen. It's the same exact process that I use to come up with a plan for how this room would be laid out to effectively be a place to be comfortable and study and broadcast from. If you saw this room, hopefully I would think you'd see, say, oh, that looks nice. I'd have my audience, my endorphin rush of, hey, they liked it. I did something. Even though at no point would that person say, oh, this is art. Oh, you're so creative. They would look at this room and think, I'm so creative. They look at this room and think, oh, wow, you really know how to put things and arrange them on the wall in a nice way. Oh, you really know how to organize space so that you can move through it easily. You would never attach the word creative to that. And yet, I know, because I am the same person who did this room and who's written a poem, or lots of them, I know that it's the same mental process. Every time you reorganize your closet, every time you navigate a new way to get to somewhere on the road and you don't use GPS, that is the creative process. You are being creative in that moment. The only difference between you creating a new route to work and me creating a piece of music, the only difference in those two things are the skills and tools that we use to achieve the end result. That's it. That is it. All children come here playful. The act of playing is the act of trying things, new things, putting them in situations and seeing what happens, pretending to be. That's creating. That's creating. That's trial and error. It's another term for being creative, the kind of creativity I'm talking about that I say everybody is born with that, and you still got it because you use it on a daily basis for all kinds of tasks that you don't think of creative tasks. It's also called problem solving. It's also called troubleshooting. But those terms, play, problem solving, troubleshooting, those terms don't have the mystique and the prestige of being creative. So we're okay being those because we don't think we have to be special to do that. And yet, the whole time, the artist, the person we call the artist, knows that, oh, yeah, I'm troubleshooting. I'm just playing with things, seeing how they work. I'm just trial and error. Nothing fancy here. So I'm not asking you or even telling you to do something you don't do already. I'm just saying, try that and apply it to something else you've never done before. That's it. And it could be that you learn, holy cow, that doesn't really work that way. But you learn something, and that's endorphins. It could be that you, oh, well, I can tweak that a little bit. You learn something, endorphins go off. And then it works this way. And all of a sudden you're on the cusp of a discovery. Your head pokes over the mountaintop, you see the sun, another endorphin. And then you achieve it and it does work. More endorphins. And then someone else looks at it and say, oh, that was kind of cool. Bam! 4 moments when you felt great about yourself. And you use that time when you're stuck on the ship and you walked away, you had a new skill, you had a new thing you knew how to do. Well, actually, it's a new skill, isn't it? You had a new product from that skill, and you had the appreciation and admiration of your shipmates. Yeah. So, having said all of that, let me give you scripture for that. Here's a scripture for the fact that you are creative, whether you think you are or not. Exodus 35:35 says, He has filled men with skill to do all kinds of work as engravers, designers, embroiderers in blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and fine linen, and weavers, all of them skilled workers and designers. Now, since we're stuck here on the good ship quarantine, let's put aside all the pointless constraints of I can't, and let's get on with doing. There's rigging to tend, there's a rudder to man, and maybe there's some cute little sailor hats to make. I love all of you, praying for you. I hope you have a wonderful Sunday, and I hope to actually see you soon. Goodbye.